So, Ella here, Creative Sound Creating University. I want to address a question I'm getting a lot, and instead of typing it every time or like on my live streams sporadically, like I wanted to just address this here, and maybe I can just share this video, or anybody can share this video for those of you that have questions about my where I am in terms of like what I use. So the question is, did you switch? Did you switch, Ella? Are you now, you're not using Studio One anymore? The answer to that question is no. I didn't switch. I am still using Studio One. I use it pretty heavy. I've never stopped using Studio One. I may have walked away and took a break, because I'm working on some things in other platforms. But I have never walked away from Studio One. Even with the big deal with when we found out that Fender acquired Presonus, that was a big deal, right? We were all shooken up a little bit because we didn't know what was the outcome of such event as that. And, just different people had different ideas and stuff that they seen over the years. And, it is kind of a thing where a guitar company buys a DAW, it usually gets ruined. And, I don't want to get deep into that or whatever, but it was definitely a concern, of like, man, Fender bought Presonus. That means everything is going to be geared towards guitars now. And, we was reading the blog about the founder that wanted to make things simple. And so we feared that everything we loved about Studio One in like the tool set, the workflow, may get stripped away from us. And, now we'll be looking at like a Garage Band type scenario, right? Garage Band versus Logic Pro, and everything just being like going backwards. So 6.0 came out, and I impressed a little bit because I do enjoy the time they took to redesign and made it more like streamlined and more clean, and like modernized. There's still a lot of things I feel like they need to work on, but I think it's one of those things where like, okay guys, we was able to fix everything, clean code or whatever that they do, right? I'm not a developer, so I can't really talk developer talk with you guys, but I feel like they kind of refresh things, and now they're going to build from there on up some things that we may see in the future, right? That's kind of where I am. So now that I see that, I didn't really get upset about the things I was asking about or prefer to see. Like a lot of you guys, a lot of y'all was really disappointed, and I was disappointed too in a way. But like I say, I've been saying this a lot, like, guys, you already know Presonus they're gonna come through somehow. They're always doing updates, and I feel like that we will eventually see some of the things we've been requesting. Studio One is already a fabulous program. Might I say that? So I already hear y'all. Some people don't think that it was anything else that needed to be added or changed. Studio One is perfect the way it is. And yeah, absolutely. That is a fair observation there. Absolutely. It's just us in the music production area. We see things a little bit differently. Some stuff that we want to do. And Then they came out with the survey, right? And I respect Personas for that, or Fender, whoever is in charge of that concept, putting out a survey. To me, that says that they are thinking about us as a community, not just mix engineers, because I can hear mix engineer like that's perfect. I mean, if you're a mix engineer, yeah, because I say that a lot too. Like even if I dabble away in Bitwig and or Ableton Live or Logic Pro for that matter, I always pull up Studio One in terms of mixing because I feel like it's the best in terms of mixing. Music production is a little bit different because there is a lot of things in here that I feel like can use improvement, and you guys can agree. Those of you that create music in here on the advanced level, right? The sampler can use a huge update. So like, just real quick, I just want to show you guys, like, and I'm pretty sure Personas is looking, but like, if we're looking at, for instance, Momentum in this case, you got Serato, right? I don't have Serato. I have Momentum. It's a free deal here. I don't really use this plugin as much, but I really needed to use this for the sake of what I recently was doing, working on a drum sample pack. So like, for instance, if let me go here to one of my files. So if I go here, and I'm not going to play anything, so, but I'm going to drag this in. And just real quick, if you guys could see, like, immediately what this thing did was it chopped everything. So now everything, like, this whole loop is now been broken down, and I can reposition and like create the track. And you know what I mean? I can do other things with this. I'm trying to zoom in, but I don't really know how to do that. But yeah, so the sampler doesn't do that. The current sampler here in Studio One does not do that. It doesn't do any of this. But other platforms does this. Ableton Live does this. Bitwig does this. And I think Logic does this as well. And I would say Reason probably does this with their new sampler. I forget the name of it, but this is huge for the urban community, for us to be able to like quickly slice things. Right now, I mean, there is a workaround. If we come here and we go to the bend option, I mean, that's just kind of what I've been doing. Play with the algorithm, have it to analyze and things like that, and then these can be turned into MIDI notes. Like, I can bring this over down into an instrument, and you know what I mean. That's how I use it. But I mean, that's great. That's a really great option. But like, we just kind of need a urban way of doing this. I think I don't know if you could do this in Machine. I don't remember, because I don't use Machine like that. I use Machine to just for their kits. I don't really drag in samples in Machine. I did in the past, but I just like Machine. And I use Machine with Studio One as well. But I just like Machine. They're like the stuff that comes in there, and I just use it for what it is. I do like mess around with samples and move stuff around, but I don't know if I ever, you know what? I take that back. Machine can do this. It's got an algorithm that's called Slice. It's sliced by resolution, and it also has like a detection, like it detects transient. So never mind that. I'm sorry for even embarrassing myself. It just came back to me because I do use it like that, but I still don't bring in samples anyway. But anyway, you guys get my drift. Like that's stuff like that. We've been waiting on that, and so hopefully in the next update or two, we'll see improvements like that. Also, the browser section in here, I don't enjoy the browser in here, and I've been tripping out about that for so long. Ever since I discovered Bitwig, I would say Bitwig's browser is fabulous. I love it. I think it's one of the best browsers I've ever encountered, because if you think about it, you spend the most time in the browser section looking for loops, looking for samples, you know what I mean, looking for one shots, looking for virtual instruments. And you also in there, if it's an easy way to make favorites, you're going to create a list, a folder of things. If you're doing that here inside of Studio One, that is not so easy, and or it's not inviting. There's this dinosaur browser. I mean, it works, it's functional, but yeah, they have this tagging section in here that I find no use for it. Like, I don't even understand the whole reason behind it, because most of the virtual instruments is, you know what I mean, it's this tagging is obsolete to me. Like vintage, really? And this is all that popped up. But that's because most instruments are not tagged like this. Because if you want to talk vintage, I feel like vintage would be Arturia. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of their stuff is vintage, and I have most of Arturia stuff, or at least the V collection. This is vintage to me. That's vintage, but it's not coming up under this tag here. But inside of Bitwig, there is a like, things are broken down in a way that it makes more sense, like VST2, VST3, or AU. You know what I mean? Instruments are broken up like that. So if you want to only visit VST2 or VST3 instruments, you can do that. There is no way you can just search for only VST2 or 3, but you have to click on it, and it does give you information. Okay, this is an audio unit. You know what I mean? Let's see. Anything different from that? Okay. So these are all audio. Oh, there's a VST. That's a VST2 unit. Okay, great. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah, but I don't see a use for the tag. That's just me, unless they redo that or whatever. But also, we talking browser. I just like how Bitwig browser just pops up all over the place. Like, it pops up here on the right, like we just seen. Also, if you're like in another section of the song, like the instrument where you can, you know what I mean, the current instrument on the current channel or a new channel, the browser pops up again, and it pops up in a beautiful way, not just some list. It pops up in a way that makes it easy to find things. Like I say, if you got things favorited, if you're searching for instruments like personas, or in that case it'd be Bitwig instruments, or you searching for things by category, it makes better sense in Bitwig. And I'm bringing all this, and I'm just bragging my butt off because I want personas to change this, hopefully, you know what I mean. But in here, like, you got this flat section, then you got the fold. Now I learned that you can make folders in here, but it's not. It's yeah. It's here are my favorites, but I mean. Now the caveat here. Now, I feel like one of my favorite features about this is that we can snapshot different instruments and effects, and we can, you know what I mean? Because a lot of times, and I say this a lot of times when we're in the browser, we're not remembering who the manufacturer, who made these plugins. We just remember Superior Drummer or USynth or VPS Avenger. We Analog Lab V. We recognize the instrument it is. I mean, I just so happen to know who made these instruments, but for instance, okay, UJM is another one. That's easy, right? Because I deal with them a lot. But when you're someone like me, if you have a bunch of instruments, you're not going to remember all the manufacturers who make all of these plugins. You just a lot of times just remember the plugin name. You know what I mean? And it helps to have a thumbnail like this. Like over time, I just create different thumbnails or whatever. I should have more, but like Studio One got this thing where like if you don't have your hard drive connected, it result back to the the default, and then it just knocks things out, and it's like, oh my gosh, then you got to recreate. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But that's probably another situation right there where like if you don't have if you have all your content saved to your external hard drive, if you forget to plug in your hard drive, Studio One acts weird. And a lot of times, like me, for instance, I don't like my when I shut down my computer, as I like to do, sometimes my hard drive, it sleeps, but I have one where I have something different going on here. The fan will continue to spin, and so I turn it off every night or when I'm not using it. Sometimes I forget to turn that thing back on before I hit Studio One. And in my situation, I have to reboot my computer in order for Studio One to recognize that the hard drive is there and you should be reading from it. If you don't do that, it's not like you load up Studio One, you forget to plug in the hard drive, turn it on, and let me just turn my hard drive on. I forgot to turn it on. It's not like Studio One automatically recognize that drive. It just don't work like that. In Bigwig, it does. Or I think in Logic, it does. There might be a prompt that say, hey, that file, you can't find that file. And let me turn my hard drive back on, and then it'll just pop up. Studio One is like its whole infrastructure falls apart, and because it wasn't on originally, it just will not work. And you have to go in and manually find the drive. But still, it's just, and you know what I mean, you got to go to the preference, and anyway. But I still love Studio One, right? I deal with it. Speaking of all of that, shortly after that, there is a crash coming. It's brewing up. There's, Studio One likes to crash a lot, and it could be due to outdated plugins, which some people say. But I just don't have that problem in Bitwig. Bitwig is built a little bit differently, and I apologize for comparing the two, because they are on two different calibers right now. You know what I mean? Bitwig is to be compared to Ableton. Those two are alike in so many ways. You know what I mean? Studio One, but there is a lot of things about Bitwig that I like because it reminds me of Studio One. So it's like the workflow is familiar to me, but Bitwig does a little bit more. But I like Studio One better. Studio One looks better. Studio One, like the workflow to me is a lot better, but it just lacks creative stuff that I like to do in Bitwig, like with the devices that pops up on the bottom, or like Ableton, the devices you can see in real time. what the plugins are doing, you know, the EQ and the compression and just different things that are happening, like colors and things jumping up and down. In Studio One, you have to pull up the plugin. You know, I mean, you do that in those other DAWs, but there is a section that they have designated for that. You know what I mean? Like, I enjoy that. I don't know if PreSonus is ever thinking about doing something like that. Also, clip launch. I would love to see clip launch or some sort. Like, I'm able to start a project real quick with that feature inside of Bitwig or Ableton. Being able to like get right to it, to the point, and when you bring in a sample, it automatically recognizes warp feature, right? Studio One can do that too, but you have to make sure that the warping function is on. It's just going to your sample, and let me show you that. Since I got Studio One, I guess I'll show you that. As long as you got this open, go to your preference, go to song setup, and just make sure that this is clicked. Stretch audio files to tempo, and you should be good to go. So when you bring in a sample, things will recognize and follow the tempo. You know what I mean? If you don't, that's because you don't have this check. But there are some situations where you don't want this check because, you know, you're doing something a little bit different. Okay, great, cool. But yeah, that's a little quick tidbit for some people who didn't know that. Maybe you had that question. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just letting you guys know I didn't move from Studio One. Studio One is still my jaw. It's still my friend. I still love her. I still love her. Not more than my wife, but I still love her. It makes me money. It help, you know what I mean? It makes my wife happy. You know, definitely makes me happy. Because there's still a lot about Studio One that I really enjoy, like the workflow, but it just, for me, it just lacks creativity. You know what I mean? Like, just some things I feel like we could use, like effects, note effects. In Bitwig, you can bring in a arpeggiator in the beginning of the MIDI channel, and boom, things happen. And that kind of works like note effects. Or you can do things with MIDI, like they have a modeler. Yeah, it's just things are done a little bit differently. It respect modulations, note effects, doing all type of weird, crazy things, bouncing around. And Ableton Live can do it as well. Using Scalar or something like that. Scalar is pretty popular, right? You guys know about Scalar. Well, in Bitwig, if I put Scalar in the beginning of a MIDI virtual instrument, I don't have to route anything in Bitwig in order to make that happen. It just works. And I was impressed. If you need to do that inside of Studio One, now when you load in Scalar inside Studio One, yeah, I mean, the sounds that comes with Scalar will work fine. But what if I don't want to use Scalar sounds? I want to use an ulterior virtual instrument and use the chords coming from Scalar. Well, you have to route things, or you have to do your composition first, you know, figure out what chords you're going to use or whatever performance, you know, depending on how you use Scalar. And then you can bounce or capture the MIDI information in there and then drag it on to the track that you're using, preferably, you know what I mean? If you do it that way, yeah. But me, when I'm in Studio One, I found a way to actually, you know, works better where I can get the MIDI information, the chords in MIDI form immediately as soon as I press or record. It prints out. So you have to put Scalar in there, and then it has to read. It has to make the next instrument, like the input, hear Scalar in order to have the MIDI chords play out. I'm not going to show y'all that. I do that on my live stream a lot. So that's why you should be subscribed. But yeah, you have to go through that type of stuff in order to make that work in here. But in Bitwig, you just throw it on and voila, it works. Put another instrument there. So essentially it's like 2 instruments on the same track. Also, Bitwig can play MIDI notes and audio on the same track, but that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. That don't really move me. It's just cool. Yeah, that is really cool. But that's not a big deal. But I mean, if we can get the sampler, man, like I use Machine for everything. Like, it's always connected. Machine is always connected, and I use it quite often. No problem there. But sometimes it gets a little bit complicated. Like, if you don't know the workflow of Machine, because it's different. It's totally different. When you're in song mode, you have to go back and forth between Machine and in here. So a lot of times I'll use Machine to create what I needed to do in that section, and I'll just bounce down and have all the files inside of Studio One and then keep going. And just because it's easier to like build transitions between sections in Studio One because everything is linear or whatnot. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's probably a few other things I'm missing, but I want to say just being patient. They did give us the option to fill out a survey recently, and between all of the surveys they went back, I would imagine all of the things that people are saying they want to see. Keyword on that survey, by the way, was, what is it? What features would make you use Studio One, like, for everything? The one-stop shop. That I'm curious. I'm just curious, like, wow, okay, what to expect next? That's like one of those, sit at the edge of your seat and just hold on, see what happens next. Yeah, great job, Personas, for getting us there. Now we really want to know what's going on. But I mean, overall, I think everything is cool. Since the new update, it was a minor update, everything seems to be pretty solid, But that's enough for my jibber jabber. I just wanted to address that and reiterate some stuff that I would love to see happen with Studio One. So I thank you guys for watching. Remember, music is art, your artist. Paint your pictures. Stay creative without rules. My name is Ella, and you should be subscribed. I'll see you in the next video or on the next live. Like the video as well. And click on some affiliate links and get you some stuff.